Good evening, friends. I'm Dave Ward. Shara Fryer is on vacation this week, and this is Eyewitness Houston. This week, we'll report on the Lombardi Award. It was conceived by the Houston Rotary Club, and it's presented each year in Houston to the top college football lineman of the year, award named in honor of the late coach Vince Lombardi. We will also take a look at some problems facing holiday shoppers. One problem caused by overbuying, causing us to run up huge debts. The other is known as compulsive buying. And our John Davenport will take us to three of his favorite places along the Texas Gulf Coast. He calls his report a coastal sampler, and he'll show us some of the more interesting people and places on our coastline. But up first this evening, the Lombardi Award and a little of the history behind it. This trophy goes to the best college football lineman in the country. This year, it was presented here in Houston to linebacker Chris Spielman of Ohio State. This was the 18th award made by the Rotary Club of Houston, and each year the stature grows. Our Don Cobos reports on its history and what it does for charity.
Tim Britton plays the game of football, but his football game is different than the one most people see or appreciate. He measures his success in inches. He measures his work in sweat. He measures his achievements in bumps and bruises. It's tough work, but Tim Britton says it's worth it.
It's true what they say about, offensive linemen are grunts, the trench diggers, and all that stuff. It's basically a position where it's not recognized by the public and the fans. But the coaches recognize you, and when a good play happens and a running back makes a great run or a touchdown, a lineman can feel good about what he does.
The Tim Brittons of the football world are the forgotten men. There's nothing sexy about their jobs. The names prove that: guards, tackles, nose guards. And the chores they carry out are less impressive: traps, squeeze blocks, blitzes. Mean hard work for mean hard men. Men who labor in obscurity for all the work, but for none of the glory. Ask Penn State coaching legend Joe Paterno.
The band doesn't play for offensive linemen. Nobody jumps up and down. If a tackle blows a guy off the football and the back has a big hole and runs in the end zone, they jump all over the back.
While most of the attention focuses on the ball and the man who has it, the success and failure of each play really hinges on these forgotten Goliaths. Linemen, both offensive and defensive. No one appreciated the work of a lineman more than Vince Lombardi.
If you look at this play, what we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here, and try to run this play in the alley.
Lombardi's name is synonymous with football success. In his years as a coach in the National Football League, he guided the Green Bay Packers to an unprecedented 5 NFL championships, including the first 2 Super Bowls. Lombardi developed his skills and knowledge of the game of football as a guard on the ancient playing fields of Fordham University. There, he was a member of the legendary 7 blocks of granite, the best line in college football of that era. Today, Lombardi's name and those years at Fordham hold a special place in college football, a special place in the dreams of every young man who aspires to play this game. This 40-pound piece of granite bears his name. It's awarded each year to the best college lineman in the nation. Where did the Lombardi Award originate? The idea was born in a city that was built by men who knew what it meant to work with their hands and their minds. Men with vision. A city built by roughnecks and wildcatters, businessmen and adventurers. This city, the 4th largest in America, is a leader in oil technology, in medical research, and in aerospace industry. Houston, Texas is the birthplace of the Lombardi Award. It was just after Lombardi's death in September of 1970 from a bout with cancer that the Rotary Club of Houston, the world's largest, decided to fight back. After receiving permission from the Lombardi family, the Rotarians created the Lombardi Award. Each fall, with the help of a committee of this nation's most prominent college football coaches, sports writers, and sportscasters, the Lombardi Award is presented to the best college lineman, to that individual who displays those virtues Lombardi believed in so strongly: hard work, loyalty, and above all, discipline. But more importantly, the Lombardi legacy lives on because these Houston Rotarians had the foresight to donate all the proceeds earned from their annual banquet to the battle against cancer. The deadly disease that took Lombardi's life continues to take the lives of 450,000 Americans each year. This year and every year, the Lombardi Committee presents over $100,000 to the American Cancer Society to be used for research. Vince Lombardi, what he accomplished, what he stood for will not be forgotten. The work ethic, the loyalty, the discipline, traits to which each American should aspire. What began with the Rotary Club of Houston as a tribute to college linemen has grown into a rich tradition, honoring Lombardi, the game, and the men who play it well.
Of all the honors that a player could receive over his college career, or any time in his life as far as that's concerned, to be given the Vince Lombardi Lineman Award would have to be one of the highlights of his life.
This is Don Cobos reporting for Eyewitness Houston.
And still to come this evening, we'll take a look at the top news stories of the week, including the election of a new Houston City Council member. And we will note some milestones in medicine as anniversaries of both human and artificial heart transplants are marked.
What to your wondering eyes now appear? Only at Burger King, it's cuddly reindeer. There's Rodney, Ramona, Rhonda, and Randy. At $1.99 each, the price is just dandy. Get one with chicken tenders or Burger King fries. Stuff a deer in a stocking for a Christmas surprise. Collect all four at a Burger King sign. Get your reindeer right now, and the best food for fast times.
Somebody said she was having an affair with her secretary. Well, look at this. She must be lesbian.
The point is, what was said about her wasn't even true. And yet, just the accusations destroyed her career.
You never actually saw it printed. You saw a major star has a deadly disease.
Their lives were destroyed by rumors. Meet them next, Donahue.
Donahue, Monday morning at 10, right after Good Morning Houston, here on 13.
I got my ski jacket at Academy. Well, what's the difference? About $30.
Only $49.99 right now at Academy.
Where the difference is the price. That's right, Bubba.
Galveston millionaire was convicted in a federal court in Houston this week, and there's going to be a new face on Houston's City Council. These are among the top news stories of the week, and Special Projects Director Gene Burke has details.
Dave, a federal grand jury on Monday found Galveston insurance heir Sherman Moody guilty of bilking his family's charitable foundation out of millions of dollars. Moody maintains his innocence but faces a long prison term and a fine in the millions of dollars. He says the charges were trumped up.
Are you surprised by the entire thing?
No, I've felt that this thing has been programmed for a long time.
Moody says he'll appeal to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. A Moody accomplice was acquitted of all charges. Voters in Southwest Houston went to vote on Tuesday to decide who'd fill the council chair vacated by George Grinius. The runoff election pitted school board president Kathy Mintzberg against assistant county attorney Vince Ryan. Mintzberg was favored to win the seat, but voters elected Ryan.
Everybody in District C has some ideas for me. Ideas about how we can improve the quality of life in District C, how we can improve the quality of this city's life, and how Vince Ryan can work his you-know-what off a lot harder than he did in the campaign.
Mintzberg blames her loss on overconfidence by her supporters. She'll remain on the school board for now. A Houston ordinance restricting billboards within the city stands. That's the ruling Wednesday from the Texas Supreme Court. The ordinance was passed in 1985 to fight what Councilmember Eleanor Tinsley calls sign pollution.
We can regulate billboards as to size, as to height, and it's a victory for all the people who have wanted us to be able to have a better quality of life.
The Outdoor Advertising Association isn't sure if it will appeal the ruling. 2 court cases wrap up the week. On Thursday, 29-year-old Joel Cox was sentenced to life in prison for the death of his infant son. The baby's body was found at a trash dumpster 4 months ago. Cox at first reported the baby's kidnapping, but later said he dropped him while giving him a bath, became frightened, and dumped the baby. 2 years ago, Cox faced another charge, that of injury to his daughter. And a Houston federal district judge has ordered the license of a Pasadena physician restored. Judge Lynn Hughes ruled in the case of Dr. Hugo Ramirez, whose license was pulled by the medical board because of questionable practices in his fat removal procedures. Judge Hughes said Ramirez was victim of bureaucratic errors, and he should be allowed to practice medicine and perform surgery, but not liposuction surgery. The judge refused to award monetary damages. That's a look at the week. I'm Gene Burke for Eyewitness Houston.
This week also marked the anniversary of some milestones in medicine. 20 years ago, the first heart transplant took place down in South Africa. And it was 5 years ago this week that Seattle dentist Dr. Barney Clark received the first permanent artificial heart. Our medical reporter Mary Ellen Conway looks at the progress in artificial hearts.
On this night, and for the 112 days of his life with the artificial device beating in his chest, world attention would be focused on Dr. Barney Clark, just as it had been focused on Haskell Karp years earlier when Dr. Denton Cooley used the first artificial heart to buy time until a transplant could be done. But in Clark's case, the implant was permanent. He participated to aid science.
He felt that as a result of his illness, I think he was hoping that there would be something that could be, some meaning, some purpose to it.
It was not the heart, but Clark's other systems which failed. Shortly before his death, he had this to say.
Yes, it's been hard, but all in all, it's been a pleasure to be able to help people. And maybe you folks learn something.
Indeed, doctors learned a lot from Clark and those who followed. Changes were made to reduce the risk of stroke causing clots. Infection and bleeding are now the primary complications. More than 20 medical centers worldwide keep the device on hand. It's been used to buy time for transplants 74 times. Because of it, 32 people have lived to get their new hearts and go home. This Minnesota man is one.
We're told one of the biggest impediments toward progress in this field is money. For example, it's taken $5 million so far to develop this French heart, and there are only 2 working models. It's going to take several million more to get through the testing stage to the point where this heart can be routinely implanted in patients.
Houstonian Dr. Arnold Landé is trying to raise funds to test a heart he's designed to be powered by a battery belt worn externally. It's one of several total and partial hearts under development. In fact, a number of support devices are now in routine use. Once implanted into the abdomen, the Novacor pump is designed to take over half the heart's job. Plans are to power it with internal batteries charged through the skin.
We feel that this device is going to be the one that can be used as a permanent implant sooner than any other devices that are available.
While a heart transplant would always be preferable, there aren't always enough donors.
So I think that we should continue to direct our efforts toward making it a permanent replacement.
Mary Ellen Conway, Eyewitness Houston.
Still to come here on Eyewitness Houston, we will have some tips on staying out of huge financial debt during the holiday shopping season. We will also look at something known as compulsive shopping. It's about people who spend money to make themselves feel better. And we'll join John Davenport in a trip down a section of the Texas coast.
We really need to get on with the space station. We shouldn't dilly-dally around with small cuts, because it's a small piece of the overall deficit problem in the space station, but we should get on with the program, and I don't want to use bad words, but quit messing around with it.
The colors road. No time to wonder. You gotta go. You feel feel excitement. Riding Pontiac. Get on your Pontiac and ride. Texas ride. Drive. Texas drive. Ride. Texas ride. Get on your Pontiac. We feel excitement.
At your Texas Pontiac dealers.
Tuesday on the 3 o'clock $1 Million Movie. What would have happened if presidential assassin Lee Harvey Oswald had lived?
You still insist this is part of a cover-up? That we're making this whole thing up? I know somebody's trying to railroad me on this.
We got plenty enough evidence to prove he's guilty as hell.
You're telling me that a poor schlub who couldn't even hold a job was capable of meticulously planning a presidential assassination?
There had to be more than one gunman.
I know we're gonna nail that little freak.
Lord Green and Ben Gazzara star in The Trial of Lee Harvey Oswald. Tuesdays, 3 o'clock $1 Million Movie here on 13.
Holiday season is here again. Stores filled with gift ideas and shoppers stocking up with everything from aftershave for Grandpa to some new gloves for Cousin Betty. Well, paying for all those gifts can put those who don't plan ahead in a serious bind. And our Jim Rosenfield has some tips on staying out of financial trouble.
These days, Becky Tunstall does a lot more window shopping than buying. That's because she and her husband found themselves about $25,000 in debt one day with little or no cash to pay their creditors.
It just got too much. I couldn't handle it anymore. It was, you know, nothing can be worse than money problems in any type of situation. It was real stressful.
Yet Tunstall is quite successful working as an assistant vice president for a savings and loan here in Houston. Her carpenter husband, however, became temporarily disabled and went through wage cutbacks. Still, there were 5 children to feed, clothe, and shower with gifts at birthday and holiday times.
I had charge cards, and I would charge because it's birthday, and so I would go and charge something for the birthday presents, and because I didn't have the money to go pay for it in cash, and then I'd end up having to make that payment, so I wouldn't have the cash available to buy the next thing.
Sound familiar? Here's a little test to see how well prepared you may be for holiday expenditures. If you answer no to any of these questions, financial planners say you may be headed for trouble, especially if you rely heavily upon credit cards to make ends meet. If you fail the debt test, you're not alone. So far this year, the Houston Area Consumer Credit Counseling Service has helped over 15,000 families get a handle on runaway finances.
If you do send something, it will let your creditors know that you are making an effort.
CCCS is a nonprofit agency funded largely by creditors. Their service is free, and after a few face-to-face counseling sessions, workers here help those in debt keep from going under through periodic telephone sessions.
We're anticipating that by the end of the year, we will have dispersed close to $14 million back to the credit industry.
They accomplish that by teaching people how to recognize their spending limits. The rule of thumb, your monthly credit payments should not exceed 15 to 20% of your net income.
You know, if you get over the 20%, then that's when you need to put the credit cards away, stop charging, avoid buying anything on credit until you get that ratio under control.
Control. It's a lesson Becky Tunstall learned the hard way. Jim Rosenfield for Eyewitness Houston.
There is another problem that affects some shoppers. They don't limit their buying sprees to this time of the year. They buy at a frantic pace all year long. These people are known as compulsive shoppers. They are frequently over their heads in debt. Don Cobos has more on what's referred to as compulsive shopping disease.
It's a disease that 10% of our adult population has, and it's mostly women between the ages of 30 and 45 who display this behavior. The compulsive shopper is someone with a compulsive personality. But in this form, he or she is not really looked on as being sick or having a problem. But nevertheless, it's a person who displays behavior much like an alcoholic.
It enhances the way they look because oftentimes they buy a lot of things for themselves. But they don't have to. Compulsive shoppers would be equally happy to spend your money or their money for you.
Women usually find themselves buying clothing, while men are purchasing electronic gadgets or business toys.
Why do so many of us buy things when we know we can't afford them or we know we really don't need them? Psychologists say it's a feeling we have of inadequacy. We feel insecure, so we buy something because it makes us feel accepted or it makes us feel like we belong.
If I'm down, depressed, if I buy myself something new, it makes me feel better.
It relaxes me. It takes a lot off my mind, just
walking around and seeing everything new, it just makes me forget, you know, a lot of things. And I love to spend money anyway.
But it's this excessive buying that leads to debt and even leads some people to steal money or shoplift. Consequences that put a cloud over Christmas. Dr. Reitman recommends several approaches to attack this disease.
But make a budget. Know what you're going to spend. Get rid of credit cards, because when you're using credit cards, they no longer look like money. They're just some plastic thing, the consequences of which are 30 and 60 days away.
Psychologists recommend you call someone. Bring out your problems to them. Share it and get their support. They say the strength of a group and the compassion of others will go a long way to help you overcome your problem. Don Cobos reporting for Eyewitness Houston.
Next here on Eyewitness Houston, a trip along a section of the Texas Gulf Coast. John Davenport reports on some of the more unique people and places that he has found.
Something special is happening this moment.
It's the weekend you've been waiting for. Mervin's Super Saturday and Sunday sale. You'll find all kinds of great buys throughout the store for the holidays, like 60% off diamond pendants, rings, and earrings, 60% off 14-karat gold, even cultured pearls. So don't miss out. Doors open Saturday at 8 a.m. for this super sale.
It's the weekend you've been waiting for at Mervin's.
Thursday on the 3 o'clock $1 million movie, Like a Thief in the Night, the disease strikes and steals the light of youth.
Yes, we found malignancy.
We wouldn't want you going to her with every horror story.
I don't want to treat that girl.
I just want to know what's happening the same second you do.
I don't think you have to tell her anything. I don't know. I didn't.
You don't want to know, do you?
No, what
You can't face it. Do you want the answer, yes or no?
Marcia Mason and Susan Clark helplessly seek promises in the dark. Thursday, 3 o'clock $1 million movie here on 13.
He's going! Oh, if I see him, I'm gonna flip out. I mean, totally flip out.
This holiday season, give yourself silent nights. Give your teenager a private phone line.
What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?
Our Texas coastline spans some 400 miles, stretches from the Texas-Louisiana border all the way down to Brownsville. Well, our John Davenport has been winding his way down the coast to show us some of the people and the sights along the way. Calls his report a coastal sampler, and this evening he drops in on 3 of the most interesting places he found.
Coming down south, Highway 87, there's not a whole lot to see until you get past High Island and then Gilchrist. Stopping here at Gilchrist, I dropped in to see an old friend of mine who's a newspaper editor and junk man. Some say there's not a whole lot of difference between the two professions.
He's 61-year-old Brian Wolf, a World War II Marine veteran of the Pacific. He's the head honcho of this, well, junk shop. He does business in this barber's chair and uses an ancient calculator. There's no use trying to inventory this place. What's in here?
I don't have any idea.
Wolf sells a lot of books. All for 50 cents apiece.
If I wanted to buy books, how would I know what was in here?
Well, take out your handkerchief and dust off, and you can see the titles, and then,
Some of the books, like these encyclopedias, lie out in the weather.
Don't you worry about rain on these things?
No, I've got plenty more of them inside.
You act kind of surprised at some of the things you see in here, like you hadn't seen them in a long time.
Well, I don't walk over here too much. You know, as you notice, I've got a lot of dust on it. Unless somebody wants me over here, there's no need for me to come in this corner that's putting something on the shelf.
Are you ever worried about shoplifters here? I mean, how would they know what to lift, and how could you tell?
Well, I can see them carry it out the door if it's worth anything. The little stuff in here, you know, that you see sitting around is not worth anything. So if they pocket that, that's their business. They're doing me a favor in some cases.
Wolf wears 2 hats. His other is as editor of the local paper, the Beach Triton. Now and then he aims his barbs like a Marine sharpshooter at neighboring town politicians, such as those who live in nearby Crystal Beach.
I thought that I would get 5 or 6 umbrellas out here and give each one of them one because they didn't have sense enough to come in out of the rain.
Wolf is like a lot of people who live on the Texas coast. He's tough as a barnacle. And no matter how hard the wind blows, he comes back like a sandfly. Closer to Houston, we stopped off at LaPorte, where we went back in time to recall a famous old resort that spawned many a romance.
So how'd you like to love me? And no other, how'd you like to drop in? Meet my mother.
The grandchildren of these dancers are bopping to rock music and barely legible lyrics now, and the big bands are gone.
But oh, how they cut a rug in the old days at LaPorte Sylvan Beach. Erna Foxworth knows. She used to dance and romance here 50 years ago when Sylvan Beach was the place for Houstonians to go for the weekend. No jets or superhighways then. She wrote a book about the place.
Everybody could come, and there was something for everybody. And of course, the largest dance floor in the South made for a lot of interest, and the big bands coming here. It was wonderful. They had to run special excursions down here, and some of the trains went on through to Galveston.
Folks were pretty formal when they vacationed in the last half-century. They even wore suits when they played skee-ball, and all those bathing beauties. People wanted to spend the weekend here, so
they eventually built 100 cottages out here on the grounds, some of them two-story, and families and sororities and fraternities used to use them a lot.
Erna Foxworth remembers the young man who romanced her here and whom she married. And she remembers the moonlit nights on the bay and the music.
When you dance to that live music and walk out on the pier in that moonlight, you know, it sort of gets to you.
Then a ride on the Bolivar Ferry in Galveston Bay. We dug into the history of an old hulk seen by thousands of people weekly, but which few know much about. This is a World War I concrete tanker called the Selma. They built 13 of them back then, just after the war, because of a steel shortage. They floated, but often ripped open and were hard to repair. That's what happened to the Selma. She was launched in June of 1919 in Mobile, Alabama. She made a number of successful trips across the Gulf, hauling crude oil from Tampico. But in May of 1920, she struck a jetty outside of Tampico, and that spelled her doom. The Selma was towed to Galveston for repairs, but the dry dock people said she was unfixable. She was shuffled about from pier to pier for a while. Tom Bloodworth remembers.
After the war, it was docked at Pier 10 for, quite a while. Over a year, I'm quite sure. And I remember fishing there at the stern of it.
Later, the Selma was towed to Pelican Island and sunk. Bloodworth's uncle, J.L., bought the ship with the idea of making it into a shipping pier, but that never happened. The ship was a haven for hermits, including one named Hambone, who kept falling off the side after too much juice of the grape. Another was C.N. Frenchy LeBlanc, who bought the Selma for $100. Frenchy's daughter, Selina Gajewski, said her father wanted to simplify his life.
He said he was getting away from high rent, women, and taxes. That's what he wanted to get away from.
The Selma is now owned by Galveston bookstore owner Reagan Brown. He bought it for $750 and pays $12 a year in taxes on it. There's another concrete ship buried near Galveston. It was the tanker Durham. The Durham and her sister ship, the Darlington, were built near Port Aransas in 1919, but they were not a success. The Durham was later made into a barge, then into a fishing pier off the North Bolivar Jetty. She was destroyed by a hurricane. And so the saga of the concrete ships ends at the bottom of the Gulf. A good idea that did not float. John Davenport, Eyewitness Houston.
And that's Eyewitness Houston for this week. We will be preempted next week for a special program, and when we return 2 weeks from this evening, Shara Fryer will be back from vacation, and I promise you the program will look a lot better. We thank you for being with us, and good evening.